So these images you've already seen. These are part of the assignment description for Project 1, but I wanted to show you a few other ones that would hope to probably clarify a few things. So um, first off, these are images from a project, and you'll see just a second. So these images are just regular photographs taken off of, I believe it was just a phone. So you can see like fairly normal coloring, nothing too unusual. And then for her composite of the three together, you can see that these are really, really intensified in terms of color. Um, there's quite a few things that were brought out, probably in my opinion. Like there's a few different things that we pick up on. There's some bright reds, there's definitely a lot of green, and I think these ones are probably in some ways easier to match because there's greens and there's some reds. This one had less green but more blues, and so I was trying to, she's finding different ways that she could pull some of those colors out. So overall, the images, while these two have different coloring, and this one simply doesn't have any green in it, so there's some other things that are different. And putting them all together, I think that these ended up being a fairly good set. There's a small issue up at the top here where these don't quite meet at the right edge. They're not perfectly aligned, but the rest of it looks good. So just another example of what you could do, just making sure that all the colors are equally intensified and pulling other ones out. And grab the next one. So here's a nice set from one of our Hawaiian students, and you can see that I think you'll pick up that the colors here are, some of them are more intensified than others. So this is the original blue, and you can see that the sky didn't necessarily change that much, but the water, she really greened that up quite heavily. And these weren't tremendously changed, but they were changed enough, and again, it's more intensification of the color. And I think on the surfboards, same situation. Like this looks like, it's a nice photograph, but it certainly does have a different effect and a different appeal with the way that she changed some of the contrast as well as the colors. So this ended up being a pretty nice set in terms of color. Then on this image, you can see here that the blues are matching each other very nicely. All the skies, very different places. These are not nearly in any of the same locations. However, they look like they belong together because of that coloration. So just so you can see a sneak peek of what they look like before, this one, it didn't dramatically change, but the sky did intensify. This one, again, not a huge change in color, but enough. Like you really can just see that super blue color. The composition also changed. It was cropped in, and that helped also. And then finally on this one with the mountains, this one probably, overall I think the top and the second one had the least amount of color change, but again, it was enough to really get those all to pop and match. And I'm going to have one more example, and then I'm going to show you some stuff about how to change some of that sky. Here's a composite that someone did of 4 images instead of the 3, and that's totally fine. And I just want to kind of walk through some of the changes that happened. So here's the original for the seagull. Caught a lot of brown in there, so it was cropped, and the colors were edited. You can see that the greens changed. They look everywhere. Overall, it feels more cold. Here is the original daisy, and it definitely did get changed quite a bit in terms of its coloration and its brightness overall. And for this one, for the pelican, again, same thing. The original had a lot more yellow in it, and then it was calmed down and that blue was changed. And finally, the wolf was not only changed for the coloration, but it was also flipped so that it had the best appearance for the final composite. Here what I'm going to do is just show a really rudimentary way of affecting only part of an image by using the layer mask. So for this one, you can go ahead and add an adjustment layer. And I realize you can't see everything off the screen, but that's okay. And I want to increase it kind of crazily so that it's very, very obvious that when I'm making a change. So I think that's going to be obvious. Then with this layer mask selected, just have to make sure we're on the right one. Then you can take paintbrush, black is what we want, and where you don't want something to show up, you paint it black. And the black basically blocks out, or it basically doesn't, none of the layer mask will affect the saturation where it's painted in black. So I'm just going to let go for a second so you can see this. So now this is black in here, and as I'm painting it black, you can see now that the sky is still affected because I'm not painting that black, but the rest of it is. So you can easily have a specific area of a photograph be more intense than others simply by painting on that mask layer. Now, let's say that I overdid it. Maybe I realized, oh, I do want a little bit of that showing. Well, maybe I can then change it back to white. And I'm going to change the hardness. Well, that's pretty soft already. Okay, well, I'll just try it over here anyway. So from here, I'm going to start at the top near the sky and kind of just, if I want to add just a little bit of something, I can also change the opacity way down. And just really gradually, maybe add a little bit of image. So it takes some of the saturation at the top, but then fades to nothing at the bottom. And so there's a lot of ways that you can play with these layer masks. The sky is one simple way to do it, but in many cases you probably would have noticed some specific spots in people's projects that popped forward a little bit more or really emphasize specific colors, and that's a quick way to do it also.